Bueno, muy buenos días a todos y todas. Sean muy bienvenidos a este cuarto seminario de investigación del CITIC, el Centro de Investigaciones en Tecnologías de la Información y Comunicación de la UCR. En esta ocasión tendremos la charla llamada Exploring the Dual Perspective in Computer-mediated Empathy, que nos va a brindar el doctor Sang-Won Lee de la Universidad de Virginia Tech. Tenemos el honor de contar con este invitado especial y les voy a dar, ya que posiblemente no lo conozcamos mucho, les voy a hacer una pequeña biografía de Dr. Lee y sus áreas de investigación. Esto lo voy a hacer en español porque me queda más fácil y después nos pasamos a modo inglés para la parte de preguntas y demás. El profesor Samuel Lee es profesor adjunto del Departamento de Ciencias de la Computación de Virginia Tech y su investigación pretende entender cómo podemos diseñar sistemas interactivos que faciliten la empatía entre las personas. Su visión de investigar la empatía mediada por computadoras procede de su formación en música computacional, intentando trasladar a los sistemas informáticos la naturaleza expresiva, colaborativa y empática de la creación musical. El Dr. Lee crea sistemas interactivos que facilitan el entendimiento, proporcionando formas de compartir diferentes perspectivas, preservar el contexto en la comunicación mediada por computadoras y fomentar la autorreflexión. Él ha aplicado estos enfoques en diversas aplicaciones como la escritura creativa, el aprendizaje informal y la programación. Entonces, para que vean qué interesante va a estar esta charla. Doctor Lee nos va a hacer como un resumen de todas esas investigaciones o por lo menos las más relevantes que ha hecho. Les quería comentar que durante la presentación Doctor Lee va a hacer algunas pausas para que podamos hacer preguntas. Entonces, y de igual forma, si alguien tiene una urgencia de que no entendió algo y quiere hacer una pregunta, puede levantar la mano durante la presentación, pero van a haber tal vez algunas pausas ya planeadas. Y de todas maneras, al final siempre vamos a abrir el espacio para consultas. Si alguien quisiera o prefiere hacer las consultas en el chat, las puede hacer. De igual forma, las personas que están viéndonos en la transmisión en vivo pueden hacer preguntas y las estaremos trasladando para acá. Perdón, si las quieren hacer en español, las pueden hacer en español y las traducimos, o por lo menos haremos el mejor intento de traducir. Y entonces ahí vamos viendo cómo las trasladamos al doctor Lee. Entonces, muy bienvenidos a todos y le paso la palabra al doctor Lee. Doctor Lee, welcome and thanks for sharing your research with us today. I just gave a short bio of yourself, so I think they are all expecting a great talk from you, I'm sure. And the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Martinez. I have a short speech prepared. So muchas gracias por invitarme. Es un honor para mí dar una presentación sobre mi investigación es mis colegas en la Universidad de Costa Rica. Les agradecería si no asumirían que intentaré esas preguntas en español. So yeah, I will start my talk. Okay, so I'm going to talk about empathy and what kind of things we can do to use technology to foster or facilitate computer-mediated empathy. So empathy is, so this is the name of the lab that I direct, so Ecolab. The motto of the lab is computer-mediated empathy. And in the lab, the work we do is to study and develop a social computing system that mediate empathy. And empathy, I think, is an interesting concept that we can use to understand like the problem that we face today in our society, because it can be applicable to many different contexts. So if you think of empathy, you have a target where people will want certain sort of understanding, and there's an actor who will try to empathize or understand the emotion or like in a situation that they're going through. And again, like many problems that we face today could be understood by looking at it as an empathy angle. So here's some few examples. So for example, developers or designer not being able to understand certain types of challenges that certain group of user go through, or maybe challenges that experts may have in understanding how novice is going through when doing certain stuff, or even educators or a school not being able to understand the challenges that people from a marginalized group go through in our STEM education. So many of them could be seen through empathy problem. So, and I think empathy is really has a lot of rich insight coming from many different disciplines. For example, coming from psychology, anthropology, philosophy, or even nursing, and of course, computer science as well. And I was doing a lot of literature to understand how researchers have understood empathy. And one of the framework that I really liked was from actually nursing. Nursing in Dr. Weissman use these framework that has four components in empathy. So she had these four components. The first one is perspective sharing, being able to understand other people's perspective. And the second one is staying non-judgmental. So not even though there's something bad is happening to the others for the target's context, like trying not to judge and like don't like saying not say it's like wrong or right or correct or incorrect. That's very important for empathy and understanding, recognizing their emotion by sensing from their facial expression or maybe from their voice or body gesture, understanding and recognizing emotion could be very important. And then lastly, communicating back on how actors understood the target's emotion is it completes the cycle of empathy. And because I am like trying to theorize based on these computer-mediated empathy, the foundation of computer-mediated empathy has this understanding computer-mediated communication better so that we could understand how we can facilitate empathy. And today I'm going to share two of my projects that has something related to perceptive sharing. And this framework is not something that I established already, but it's more of an ongoing efforts of myself to fill in the blanks. And then one big blank that I realized when I draw this framework was this right side. So what do we do on the right side? How can we support target? There was kind of a natural question that came to my mind when I first create this picture. And empathy has been studied in computing as well. And I don't know if you are familiar with this expression that says VR is a ultimate empathy machine, which is interesting view because you can experience someone else's life through like VR headset. And there has been a lot of projects and research and artwork that try to use VR headset to facilitate empathy. So here's some free example where in one example on the left, you can allow users to experience what it feels like to live in battlefield. So it was about Project Syria. The other project is from psychology department to elicit empathy to people, to help them experience how it feels like being homeless, like getting evicted from apartments and, having to sleep on the street. So there's like a lot of projects that use VR. And one of the, I think these are really good projects and then valid approach to use technologies to facilitate empathy. But I feel like there was something missing. Like one thing that is missing is that it only applies to the situation where actors will feel sympathy, where they will feel sorry for the target, and which is again valid, but I think empathy is much broader concept that we can apply to many different contexts that is happening every day. For example, it could happen in parent and child communication, or it could happen in collaboration. If I understand how my colleagues are doing, I will that will lead to better outcome in collaboration. So I was hoping that we can apply empathy in a much broader concept. The other thing that I noticed in this project was that actors are there, but the target is not part of the system, right? The computational system, they try to capture the target's experience as much as possible, but it's not in the context where targets or actors are both involved. So I wanted to explore this avenue. And I want to explain a little bit of my background. So I started my research as a computer music researcher rather than computer science researcher. So believe it or not, in every picture of these, there's somewhere I am playing an instrument. They may not look like an instrument, but yeah. So this is my research background. And at some point, I felt like, music is really relevant to empathy. So I would like to give you some thought experiment. So if you think about these cello, for example, so cello or violin, which is really difficult to learn actually. So if you think this instrument as an interface that somebody has to learn, then it is almost like violating all kinds of principles that we learn in HCI. So in terms of usability, violin is a very bad UI because it's difficult to learn. It takes years to master. If you stop playing, you will forget about it. It's like almost always the opposite of what we learn from HCI. And the question is that why are there a crazy set of people who are willing to put efforts and time to learn and master these instruments? And I think there could be many other reasons, obviously. Participating in something is engaging way to experience something. But also, I think the one of the reasons could be power of empathy. So musicians who express their emotion mediated by these musical instruments and let the audience feel the same way and let the audience feel the same kind of emotion that the musician is trying to express. And that rewarding experience, I think that's like a really powerful experience that like help people to want to learn these musical instruments. So in this setting, in my previous computer music research, I was doing all the work for performer and composer who are target in this context, like in this context of empathy, where target is trying their best to make audience feel the same kind of emotion that they're expressing through the emotion. So that's perhaps my research background, because of the research background that I have coming from computer music, that's where I thought these incomplete picture of these empathy framework was sort of strange. So one thing that I learned from my dissertation is that like live, participatory, collaborative music performance is effective to engage audience. So these are some of the project. And one concept that I learned was like this notion of liveness when it comes to designing computational system. What does it mean to have liveness? What is the way to facilitate liveness in interactive system? So I developed this working definition of liveness. This defined as the extent to which a creative process is immediately and continuously visible or perceivable to spectators in interactive system or media. So that's how I developed this idea that, oh, maybe liveness can facilitate empathy because this is the fact that you're revealing the entire creative practice may help them empathize with the creator. So imagine this is like a food that you order in a restaurant, which may look, decent, but not like a high-end restaurant. But then if you look at the entire process, the dish being cooked in front of you with like these performative gesture, maybe the customer will care more about these dish because you have seen the entire process. This is another example. Maybe it's a painting that looks okay. It's decent, but we may not feel mesmerized. But if you look at the entire process of that painting being painted in real time as a recording, you may feel differently about this painting. This is another example where a dog owner mounted a GoPro camera on top of their dog, and they wanted to see what happens while they are not around at home. And because I'm a qualitative researcher as well, like I sometimes look at the comments in the YouTube video, and some people said, "Hey, like this is like an interesting video." They focus on something else and did not feel empathetic to the dog. And some set of people say that, oh, the dog was lonely, it is heartbreaking. So they feel sorry for the dog, but they don't feel with the dog. So this is what we call sympathy, but not empathy. There are a small set of number of people who said that this video is scary, and then it feels like they're looking at horror movie. So I thought this was like really good example of empathy because this might have been the emotion that the dog would have felt while they're waiting for their master because they don't hear anything. There's no sign of return. They hear something in the kitchen. If you go there, nothing is there. So it could feel, scary. So this is a good example where technology could facilitate empathy using this liveness. So this is sort of the purpose of the talk. I was trying to get some hints on what can we put on the right side of this theoretical framework. And I'm going to share two of my projects that use this approach of recording, sharing, and expressing. And that will help us to understand what can we put on this empathy framework to support target. So two projects that I'm going to talk about, one of them is OtherTube and the other is Movis. So OtherTube is a collaborative project that I have done a few years back, and it was published in a conference called Kai. And the context of this project is filter bubble. So filter bubble is the term coined by Eli Pariser, basically defined as your personal universe of information that's been generated by algorithms that are trying to guess what you're interested in. So if you're trapped in filter bubble, it is challenging to share different perspective when we are so this is like a barrier to empathy. So why is this happening? It's because many recommender system use interaction history for feed generation. So whenever you visit YouTube or maybe Facebook or Instagram, like they are trying to guess what you would be interested and then recommend them as in their feed. And then the reason why that they're doing is to keep you engaged. So the content providers only goal is to help make you stay longer in the platform so that you watch more advertisement and you spend more money and you collect more users. So they don't really care about like facts, like they don't care about factual news, they don't care about political divide or so the only rewarding mechanism is to keep you engaged, and they found that like keeping someone in filter bubble is a great way to make money. So how do we pass this filter bubble? And it is challenging to get past this filter bubble. And this is a quote that we received from one of our participants who said that, oh, I want to find new song. And if I want a new song, I have to pretend that I'm the random nobody. So I have to like open incognito tab and then YouTube will recommend me music that I don't get in my usual feed. So you can imagine that this is very difficult in any kind of content provider which curates their feed based on algorithm. So the question that we explored here is that how can we help users be aware of their filter bubble and recommendation system and discover new content outside their bubble. So we employed a very simple idea of like in a switching recommended video. So we developed these Chrome extension called OtherTube, which is obviously the opposite of YouTube. So YouTube is your television, OtherTube is other people's television. So what it does is that basically capture your recommended video and then swap it with someone else's video. So the key idea behind it is that the best way to recognize your filter bubble is to be in someone else's. So here's a short video of how it works. So you can see that like you can create your own profile, and then the profile needs to be anonymous. So you can set your gender, race, ethnicity, and age range, not in a specific way. And like share your location. And this was done in United States context. So you have to specify state, but you can imagine it could happen in anywhere. And then once you share that, you visit your website and refresh your website, you're going to have other people's recommended video on top. And then your recommended video will be still available on the bottom. But what you see is like the other people's recommended video. So you can see that like you can see who is getting these sort of recommended videos. So here is example, a white female in North Carolina, which is in the United States, very conservative states who are in their 50. Looks like they are very interested in Indian culture. So you can see that a lot of Indian music, yoga video, and other perhaps Indian music, so it is really interesting to see that, oh, like someone else is getting different kind of video that I've never seen in YouTube. So this is the way that they can discover new content and understand other people. So we have done a field user study. We allow them to use this other two for 2 weeks, and then we did like quantitative analysis and qualitative analysis from the interview. And then here's a few example of the result that we get from the interview. One theme that we found was that other two helped recognize their filter bubble. So here, by being able to see other people's recommended video, they realized their video that they used to watch is very different from what others watch. There's another example is that being in another person's filter bubble is really cool because I get to see new content, novel content that I've never seen before on YouTube. So here's one participant saying that listening to classical music, it was a welcoming change, and being able to find a new content that they would have not seen in their feed was like a useful way to discover new content. And the other significant theme that we found is that sharing recommended videos reduce biases. So by looking at, as in the example, like white female in North Carolina watching Indian music video, was in the traditional music video, it was interesting to see, so that other people also found something interesting too. So here's one of my example that I like is that I found it is very cool that someone in their 40s was still watching Olivia Rodrigo. Makes me feel better about aging. So they were, it was reducing this bias that they have towards like older generation. Okay, so one thing that I think is really cool about this project is that we are still using AI to diversify content and support reflection. So if you draw this spectrum of personalizing YouTube video for yourself, on the right end, you can imagine what we have right now. On the other end, you can imagine like a completely choosing 10 random video from YouTube, which is not gonna, it's just interesting things to look at. And actually the keynote speech from CSCW conference that I went was about this idea of watching random video, but it is not gonna work for you. So there's something in the middle where you could just watch popular videos where people watch, and it's not like personalized one, but it's because it's popular, it's going to work to some extent. And what's interesting about YouTube is that all these recommended video is highly personalized and highly curated by algorithm, but it's not going to be personalized to me. So it's like far from what I would like, but then because of what I would like will create this filter bubble. You can create a set of different a different set of curated video that are curated by algorithm that could help me understand my preference, my taste, and what kind of diverse content or diverse perspectives are available in the world or in YouTube platform. So using AI to diversify content, I think it's a interesting approach that we can use to um, cope with filter bubble. So that was one example that I wanted to introduce, and I wonder if anybody has any question about other two projects. I'll be happy to pause and take any question, or I could take it later as well.
Let me see if someone has any question. ¿Alguna pregunta de la audiencia hasta ahorita? De lo que ha conversado el doctor Lee. No. Sí, Luisa,
Yeah, maybe I
adelante.
can. Yeah.
Yeah, is data collected by other tube like stored publicly or with the user data as like private?
So all the data was anonymous. Like when they signed up for the study, we were making sure that their identity will not be shared. And I'm going to talk about it later. But then empathy is related to sharing your information with others, which is also a privacy problem, right? So it is important to create an environment that they feel safe to share their data. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks.
Dr. Lee, we have one more question from our Facebook audience. So it's actually from another faculty, Ignacio Diaz. He's asking, how does it work in other tube this? If I got a recommendation of someone else's bubble and I like it, I got more videos like those or fewer? Or has it no effect on my feed?
So that's an interesting idea, and I really love that. What I really wanted to see was that how we actually collected how many of times they watch this video recommended from other two, and what we were hoping was that it will sort of influence the algorithm behind the scenes, so that like as I watch this, let's say in the Indian traditional music video, that interaction history will feed back to the algorithm, so the algorithm will take it as an input that, oh, this person may like this new content, and it will feed a new novel content. So we were hoping to see that, and then I probably was difficult to see that, and then how difficult to measure within the context, within the 2 week period. But that was very much what we wanted, like, sort of like interrupting the algorithm by, providing other two. But that's a great question. But the other tube itself does not have any way to change the algorithm. It can indirectly change the algorithm by consuming those new videos.
I actually have a question since the first time I watched your video previously. So how did you evaluate this? And one thing that I was curious is whether these have anything to do with, for example, changing people's political views, especially in the US. So did you evaluate some of that?
Yeah, so yeah, the way that we evaluated was that like their ability of this app facilitating self-reflection, and then it was mostly survey question that we asked every day, and it was how, like, the awareness of their filter bubble. So we asked that question every day, and then like that was, I think it was effective to understand their one. And I think it's a really interesting question of, like, how can we use this for political divide that we have, in the United States or any other country who are struggling with this bipolar divide on their political leaning. We haven't done it because, like, YouTube is something that we cannot control. Like the video that they provide could be political video if they are someone who watches political video all the times. But you know, I think it can have impact by showing two different perspectives, and then like seeing other types of video that I would never watch on YouTube could be useful to get information from both ends. And actually, I have another uh, another paper that was published in following years. Is the name of the paper is called News Comp. So News Comp is like providing two articles from two different political views, and then ask them to annotate, you know, each article, and then compare it, and through that process to mitigate the bias that they have towards the other political leaning view. So that was actually a follow project that we did, although I'm not presenting it today. So feel free to check out the paper. It's called Newscom. That was 2023 paper from Kai. But yeah, very relevant question. I wish we can do more on work on these mitigating the divide in political views. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. So I think we don't have any more questions.
Okay.
So far, so
Okay, so next project that I'm going to present is MOVIS, which we just presented in the CSW conference, which happened this week in San Jose Convention Center. So again, this is a collaborative work with my colleagues from Virginia Tech. So this is like a approach attacking different kind of problem. So this is about perspective sharing, but sometimes perspective sharing is about literal perspective, like, you know, visual perspective. So like here's like one of my favorite memes that I use in my HCI class, where there could be, it well demonstrate there are multiple stakeholders, and like you have to understand the different kind of you know, motivation and views about different stakeholders. So your parents, like who will purchase, who have a purchasing power of this mobile for babies, but then for babies, it may not be the best, you know, mobile for them. But like sometimes these perspective sharing is necessary because they cannot see what they see. So the particular problem that we look at is VR, and if you look at this VR headset, if you are wearing VR headset, you can experience like various types of interactive content inside, but then bystanders will not be able to understand what you're going through, and they are kind of excluded, and then maybe VR headset user is isolated from their social context. So obviously we have one solution. One solution is to make everyone wear VR headset and share all the content so that everyone can share have a shared experience. And you know, you can imagine there's something uncomfortable about this picture. It looks very dystopian for some reason, and maybe also because one who is selling the VR headset is not wearing the VR headset. So I mean, you can imagine that this might not be a good solution. And I know one reason, and one of the reason is because VR headsets are not designed for everyone. So here's a good examples of like why VR headsets are not for everyone. So here on the top left, you can see like this 3-year-old or 2-year-old child wearing VR headset, which only exists in Google stock image. It never exists in real world because manufacturer does not recommend children to wear VR headset because it can impact their vision and vision development, or you know, also same for older adults. They cannot wear VR headset because it's more likely to have nausea. And also it could be some other people, for people who are wearing makeup, people who has like, you know, coarse hair texture, they will have difficulty and they're not willing to wear headset because of this discomfort that this you know, VR headset strap may have. So that's like kind of disappointing because VR could be really useful in, for example, in the context of like STEM learning. So imagine if you bring your child or children to science museum, and you can imagine that, oh, we can bring these dinosaurs or solar systems or atoms in a scale that they can perceive in the virtual world, that would have been really effective and interactive and then useful for STEM learning in this informal setting. But then because of this lack of inclusivity of VR headset, we cannot really use the technology for these, setting. So what we suggested a few years back was that what if we downgrade the technology? So instead of using VR headset, what if we use these tablet mobile devices that young children use anyway at home, and then like use it as a window to see VR world, so that they can still learn STEM material like science, technology, and engineering, mathematics materials using this low-tech technology. So we are collaborating with a local science museum and Institute of Creativity and Arts and Technology in Virginia Tech to create this system. And before we develop any system, we want to learn how we should design these sort of content. So we create this platform called Movis, and then we just published this study in CSCW about how can we develop the content for like 2 people, 4 people, up to 12 people. Like, having many people in this content is going to be different from designing content in for one person. So, and then the other nice thing is that this tablet technology is, because you can see the VR world as well as outside world, people can run around and then create content that is more dynamic and physical even. And like you could bring like an interactive content that you would never expect in usual VR headsets. So here's an example, like video footage of us like doing experiment, and we developed this competitive game where people need to collect coins or balloons by changing colors, and then you can see that many people are enjoying game at the same time, and then we were able to support up to 12 participants all at the same time. So yeah, based on this platform that we developed, we actually deployed this system in the Science Museum, and then this content that we developed for learning science, in particular, they were learning solar system. So this video on the top, you can see that these children who are participating in summer camp were able to look at these solar system planets and create their own planets using different, selecting different features of planets so they can learn science material in this VR interactive system. So one thing that we thought it was interesting was that, like, using low tech for inclusive and social UX. So VR headset, maybe at some point it will be inclusive enough so that everyone can wear it. But until then, like these tablet or handheld device technology could be useful to make VR experience more social and inclusive. So yeah, that was another project that I wanted to share, which I can pause and see if there's any question from the audience about Movis.
¿Alguna pregunta de la audiencia sobre este proyecto? No. Dr. Lee, there was a question from the previous project that I missed in
okay.
Zoom's chat. So I don't know if you can take it.
Yeah. So the question is, why using YouTube and not other social media platform for these experiment? Yeah, I mean, so obviously every social media will have its own context, and if you want to attack for like tackle like political leaning, maybe YouTube is not the best platform. It might be better to use, let's say, Twitter or other, like, news media article platform. But in this particular context, we were interested in this recommender system and then preference on content consumption, which is, not necessarily tied to political leaning. So I could imagine it could apply this for other platform, but in our case, we were interested in these filter bubble, which is prominent in YouTube as well. So that was just like a choice that we made rather than requirement. I think we can do the same approach, apply same approach in other platform as well. Okay, I hope that answered the question. So let me just hopefully move on. Great. Okay, so just a few takeaways.
Sorry, Burley. We just got a question from our live audience.
Okay.
So it's Ignacio, and he's saying, in movies, besides tablets, could it be used with cell phones, which are more available, but the size of the screen affects the experience?
Yes, we developed the second prototype version. So initially, the first prototype, we had to use our own tablet that has like a VR tracker on top, mounted on the top, and then there needs to be base station that tracks this, tracker. But the second prototype, we are using a web-based XR, and then we are using the sensor that are available in any sort of mobile devices, like, for example, camera, so that anybody can use their own phone by scanning QR code and connecting to a website that will be able to see this content in the shared context. So we have that new system, although I haven't showed it today. Yeah, so it's possible.
Great. And we have a comment on Zoom's chat from David, if you are able to see it, but I'm not sure if he's referring to the tablets or the VR sets.
Yeah, I mean, so apparently smartphone, I would like to believe that most of the population will have smartphone, so that it is definitely more inclusive than headset. Not everyone will own VR headsets, so it's certainly more affordable, or like something that they already have. So hopefully that's going to be more inclusive in conveying these sort of STEM material to broader population. Okay. Should I continue or?
Sure, I think we have no more questions.
Okay, great. So just to give you a takeaways from this talk is that empathy, when we think of empathy, we often think that empathy is actors' problem. Like how can we use technology to facilitate empathy so that actors will understand better about targets? But actually, it's a dual process. Like we can do, I'm not saying that it's not just actors' problem. I'm saying that we can do many different things to support target. So how computers mediate our communication and social interaction can shape target's expressivity, thereby affecting actors' ability to empathize. So if the target can more effectively express their emotion and share their data or information of how they might have felt in a certain way, then actors will better empathize with them. So if we can use technology to help target express and share, that is going to help actors to empathize with the target more easily. And another thing that I wanted to highlight is to differentiate sympathy from empathy. And all of these ideas that I get inspiration from traditional literature coming from CSCW. So, there's a lot of rich literature about groupware, creating real-time collaboration system. Some of the authors' names are listed here. If you read this literature, I will get a lot of ideas for how we can use technology to facilitate empathy. So again, like I said in the beginning, how can we fill the right side of the framework? One idea is to use computer as an expressive medium. So any way to use computer in an artistic way or in a musical way, if computer could be used to help target to express their emotion or convey their ideas, that is going to be helpful for empathy. Another common theme that I found is that the self-tracking technology is going to be useful for self-reflection. So self-tracking is basically collecting data from yourself, and existing literature pointed out that if you are able to better reflect about themselves, and reflecting on yourself is basically understanding yourself, like empathize with yourself as well. But you can imagine that if you understand better about yourself, you can express yourself. So it is a prerequisite to better understand myself, to express what I feel and how I feel. So I'm probably going to skip this related work. So I have been working on self-tracking for supporting knowledge workers to better understand themselves by tracking their screen activities. And one example that I found was that, like, by asking them to watch the time-lapse video of their screen, it was effective to facilitate inner empathy. They were more generous about themselves. They were more positively understanding their productivity. So here's one of my favorite example where, hey, I wanted to read there are 3 papers, but I only read 2 papers. Probably this was a PhD student. And later, by looking at this time-lapse video of my screen, I realized that I put a lot of efforts into reading these papers. So I feel better about not being able to accomplish the goal that I had, because the context that captured in this video was positively framing their productivity because it had more information about them. And then the other thing that I'm doing recently is how can we create safe and judgment-free online space? So again, like I said, being able to express is making yourself vulnerable in front of others. So like having safe and judgment-free environment is really important in empathy. So I've been looking at this, and then a lot of the researchers are using AI to moderate this online space so that we can detect some malicious actors, such as like hate speech or triggering content, which is one way to do it. But that's again not enough, because if you think about this detection motivation theory, like coming from psychology, is there are 2 angles. One is threat appraisal, and the other is coping appraisal. So threat appraisal is to moderate the threat, and coping appraisal is to empower target and let them know how to survive and how to be resilient about this threat that they have in online space. So I've been using this AI to empower people. One example that I have is to use conversational agent to educate adolescents to be more resilient against cyber grooming. So cyber grooming is like a perpetrator interacting with young teens to help make them, meet up offline that may lead to sexual abuse and exploitation. So we are, rather than trying to detect it, which is fine, but also we want to empower adolescents to be more resilient. Another project that we are working on is to educate people about triggering content in social media by whenever somebody want to post a tweet or social media post in the social media, like, nudging them to think about, oh, like, would you want to add trigger warning because your content may have something that triggers someone, and people may not have enough awareness about what may trigger other people. So we are using these artificial intelligence to help them learn more about this triggering topic. Another project that I wanted to share with you is a project called Tema, which is not necessarily about making safe online space, but this was empowering parents, so whenever parents want to read a storybook, we create this system where voice intelligent agent will collaborate with parents to read storybook as if it was theatrical play, so that it's more rich experience that the children can have, and then parents will have more engaging experience for reading books. So it could, like a lot of the media today, such as ebook or audiobook or storybook on a tablet, does not have a space to involve parents in it. So we actually wanted to involve parents so that they could be part of the storytelling. And this was a collaboration with Daniel Vargas Diaz, who actually graduated from UCR, which is why I'm here today. Was the starting point of this invitation. So I would want to acknowledge Daniel's work here. So yeah, and then the last few things I wanted to say is that there's a huge tension between privacy and empathy, because empathy is about sharing their context and information and data. So it has to we have to create a private, we have to secure the data that they're sharing, and like privacy is very relevant to empathy questions. So this is something, a new research topic that we should pay more attention to. Okay, so last thing that I want to conclude is that, like, with this framework useful elsewhere. So one thing that I like to do is like to switch agent to something else. So I switched actor with computer, and computer could be also an actor who will try to understand target. And like already a lot of people there's a community called affective computing, where they use computers to recognize emotion, detect agitation from voice, and that's called computational empathy, how computer can empathize with target. And so that's like a already ongoing work. The other angle that I wanted to propose is the other way around. So how can we help human empathize with computers or AI? So that's like something provocative. Like every time I say this idea, I get some resistance. But like my idea is that we are going to live in the world where we will collaborate with computers or AI. So like supporting actors, supporting human to address AI literacy or computational literacy, so that they will get all this benefit coming from technology, is going to be an interesting angle to deal with the inequity that people may have in targets. So you can do both ways, like this. We can make computers to express their intention more effectively, or we can help actors to have deal with AI literacy. So I think this framework could be useful for other avenues too. So that concludes my talk. Well, thank you very much for listening, and I'll be happy to take any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. We do have a question from our faculty, Braulio. Braulio, you want to go ahead and ask yourself? No.
Well, my English is not so good when I talk. So
Yeah, I saw your question from
okay.
Okay, so do you believe that people with autism spectrum disorder level 1 could be empowered by your research by boosting their empathy, social skill? Yeah, so yeah, I think that's a really good question, and I'm unfortunately not knowledgeable enough to answer. I mean, knowledgeable in terms of like autism spectrum disorder to answer your question, but I could imagine that you could apply this framework to both, like not only to think about supporting people with autism spectrum, but also how can you support neurotypical population to better understand people with autism spectrum. So yeah, I think it could be the theory framework that I proposed in this talk could be applicable to both population. And I think the technology could be used to empower people with autism by helping them express their how they feel and what they feel, and then also allowing the neurotypical people to understand the context. So unfortunately, I don't know how, because I'm not a domain expert on the particular topic, but I believe that's certainly possible. I hope it answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aurelio, for the question also. And we have Marco Piedra and then Alan Berrocal. Adelante, Marco.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any related work on using a computer that is as an actor to mediate between people, for instance, with conflicting political views, for instance, for conflict resolution? That is the computer, the computer program or the application could be used for understanding both sides and trying to find a common ground.
Yeah.
Is there any related work on that?
Yes. There are quite a number of work done in that context. Like, so it's not all the time it's the context that you're talking about. Like I am pretty sure there are work that are relevant to political view for sure. And I was like other works that I remember is like, robot or intelligent agent, mediating conflict resolution in a collaboration or in the class discussion where when they are talking about like politically divisive topic, how AI agent could mediate like different views there. So there are actually pretty good number of work coming out of these CACW or social computing and HCI venues. So I can definitely like do some search and then share it with you if you would like. But I don't have it on top of my head right at the moment. But yeah, I'm almost certain that there are many interesting work that you could refer to.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Alan, go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, just to say that your talk has been very enjoyable. I liked all the projects that you presented. And in fact, more than a question, I would like to sort of, just try to get your thoughts on the difference between empathetic or empathy in computer interaction and effectiveness. So this term of effective computing,
Yeah.
maybe it's been around for several years by
Right.
Rosalind Bird, but so how do you relate this effective and empathetic computer in HCI, for example?
Yeah. So affective computing has been emerged from the computer vision and signal processing to detect emotion. So if you look at this empathy framework, affective computing is very relevant to this third component. So recognizing emotion. So that is very relevant to what I talked about today. But in psychology, empathy can be there are different types of empathy. One of them is affective empathy, which is about understanding, recognizing emotion. So imagine that your significant other got mad in the morning, so you can read her or their face to recognize, oh, something is wrong, like they're mad for some reason. So that's like affective empathy. But then to be able to understand really what's going on, you have to know what happened. So that's what's called cognitive empathy, like being aware of what happened. So it's about more about information that will account for the emotion that they're going through. So affective computing is relevant, but also empathy needs more than just like detecting emotion. It needs to know the context of the emotion that they are feeling. So that's where I think this cognitive empathy is very relevant to traditional social computing literature, where they talk about awareness or social translucence, what kind of informations are shared with others, and workspace awareness. Like those are relevant to cognitive empathy, and then affective computing is relevant to affective empathy. Does that answer your question, hopefully?
Yeah, thanks, because I just wanted to organize some concepts, because currently we're working in a little project here in our school where we have a bunch of sensors in the room, and these sensors get temperature
Yeah.
of the environment, level of noise, number of people in the room, etc.
Yeah.
And so the typical interactive systems like these Alexas and stuff, you ask, for example, directly, raise lower the temperature, make it cooler, etc. But say if you're in a room and you just order something like, oh, it's too warm, you're not asking the system to do nothing, right?
Right.
But maybe, so we're trying to pick up these sort of expressions and then offer some services like, oh yeah, it's too warm because, say, the air conditioning is bad,
Yeah.
or oh, it's summer, and the system to offer some options to the user. And so because we're working in this project, I wanted to have these appreciations of how it relates to empathy, but I think it's now cognitive awareness of the system.
Right. So both are complementary, like knowing when to intervene. It's coming from this affective computing or detection, but also like deeper insight. And once you know when to intervene, how to address or what to do, what kind of how to intervene is going to be better informed if the system knows the context that users are in. So I think those are two complementary approaches that are necessary.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is a question on Zoom's chat. You want to go ahead and read it?
So how the current emotion recognition system differentiate between similar emotions such as happiness and surprise? So yeah, that's a great question. So, and obviously there are a lot of literature in psychology that look at these different kind of emotion, and then there are a very simple way to think is like, there, I don't know if you have seen these like positive, negative, and like high valence, high arousal, low arousal, those like a two dimension that you can categorize emotions. So people have been creating a lot of training set to like, for example, facial expression of happiness and surprise. And then we know that like this is coming from surprise and happiness, like, and then use those training set to train the algorithm to detect these different kinds of different but similar emotions. So that has been done, but also algorithm has a lot of limitation because like, the training set is limited to like in a narrow population, for example, or it may not work for a broader population. So we are like a lot of computer vision researchers are still working on these differentiating similar emotions. So but basically by collecting data, that's like the basic approach that they're doing, I believe. But if it's like a different modality, if it's like a text, that's like another probably approach that people are taking. So depending on the modality, whether it's the video or audio or text, like, people have been working on different approaches to detect these different emotions. Although I'm not an expert in any of all of these domains, so that I don't know if I know the most state-of-the-art approaches that they're taking.
Just to complement what Dr. Lee said for David, we have some professors at our school who are actually working or have worked on that topic. One of them is Luis Quesada. He used to work on trying to identify emotions based on computer vision, based on the face of people. And more recently, I forgot the name. He's a master's student and he's also a professor. I already remember Jonathan Esquivel. He did a work on recognizing emotions when people are playing video games. And he also did some facial recognition, if I'm not mistaken. So there are some professors you can talk to about this if you're interested. Any other questions? No? Then check our Facebook. If we got any more questions. We just have good comments for you, Dr. Sang, Dr.
Right.
Lee, sorry. So people saying that it has been a great talk, and Gustavo Lopez is saying he hoped you had a great experience at the conference, and thanking you for giving back to the local community through your presentation.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for inviting me, and I hope it was helpful to have some new perspective on computing.
Sure, it's definitely a topic that we haven't explored in our department, so it's kind of interesting to see a different vein of research. Ok, si no hay más preguntas de la audiencia, creo que estaríamos cerrando por acá, agradeciendo. Hay una cosa más que quiero decir. Además de agradecerle al público que estuvo con nosotros todo este rato y haciendo preguntas muy interesantes, quería nada más mencionar que por aquí tenemos a Daniel Vargas, y no es que ya se nos fue. No, aquí está todavía. Daniel Vargas fue la persona que nos hizo el contacto para poder traer a Dr. Lee en el contexto de un equipo multidisciplinario que estamos montando para un proyecto de investigación el próximo año. Entonces, a través de Daniel y de, bueno, también su supervisor acá en Costa Rica, que era el doctor Marvin Cotto, de la Escuela de Ingeniería Eléctrica, que también nos acompaña hoy, pudimos hacer que Dr. Lee sacara un tiempito dentro de esta semana que estaba en la conferencia para venir a acompañarnos. Entonces, quería nada más decirle a Daniel, hola, si quieres abrir el micrófono y presentarte y decir unas palabras, porque gracias a vos es que tenemos al Dr. Lee hoy acá con nosotros.
Sí, claro. Bueno, buenas, un gusto. Mi nombre es Daniel Vargas. Yo estudié ingeniería eléctrica con énfasis en computadores. El profesor Marvin fue mi supervisor del bachillerato con la tesis y demás. Y hace un par de años me fui a Estados Unidos a hacer mi maestría a Virginia Tech, donde el doctor Sam Won Lee fue mi advisor. Ahí trabajamos mucho en el uso de tecnologías para mejorar el aprendizaje en niños. Ese fue en lo que nos especializamos mientras yo estuve en mi maestría. Y sí, yo también ahorita estuve en CSW participando, presentando un póster con el laboratorio de allá. Es muy bueno poder estar aquí de vuelta. Yo ahora que terminé la maestría regresé aquí y trabajo con una empresa fundada por costarricenses en Estados Unidos, donde usamos AI para mejorar la empatía y esperamos poco a poco ir creciendo y poder buscar más personas aquí a nivel nacional que nos puedan ayudar a crecer y a mejorar todo esto, porque creo que es un área que es muy importante, muy relevante y que aquí en Costa Rica todavía tenemos mucho potencial para explorar cómo usar los frameworks de Human Computer Interaction para mejorar problemas sociales que tenemos todos los días aquí. Entonces, un gusto y muchas gracias por estar aquí.
Gracias a vos, Daniel. Excelente. Así que aquí hay muchos estudiantes, ya saben, pueden contactar a Daniel si les interesa también el tema laboral. Y hacemos de todo un poco, anuncios de todo tipo. Entonces, bueno, estamos creo que concluyendo la sesión. Muchísimas gracias a todos. Dr. Lee, thanks a lot for your talk. It's been a pleasure to have you. And hopefully we'll see future collaborations with you.
Well, thank you very much for having me, and thank you very much for being a great audience.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Gracias a todos. Hasta luego.
Gracias, hasta luego.